let's talk about your origin story. We don't need to get into an argument about whether success is a product of your nature or nurtured. It's probably a little bit of both, candidly. But what would be helpful, just to kick things off, is to understand how
Sure.
your early years directed the course of your later years.
Yeah.
Like what your parents said? Was it what they did? But just give us a little bit of appreciation for that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking that question. I like to talk about, the community from which I come from. I'm actually in Colorado today, and I grew up. My family's fourth generation from Colorado. I'm fourth generation from Colorado, and grew up in an all-black neighborhood. This is in time of segregation, and so there was one Japanese family that lived in our neighborhood, but outside that was all African Americans, and there were families, communities, single parents in some cases, and I always like to kind of borrow this term that we continue to refine and develop, a term called beloved community. And I lived in a beloved community. It was a community that really focused on taking care of the community. And my parents were, leaders in that community, were school teachers. My dad also led a civic association. It was called North City Park Civic Association. One of the things that he focused on was, how our community would be treated in terms of, various things like, social services. And at the time, we used to get a lot of snow in Denver. And our neighborhood was typically one of the last to get snowplowed. And I mean, there'd be 2-3 feet of snow. And you have all these working parents who have to get to work, some via bus, some with carpool, whatever it might be. And then the streets would be completely clogged with snow. And of course, they couldn't get to work, which creates a problem for them ultimately in keeping their jobs, et cetera. And my father saw this as a big issue and literally pulled together a civic association. That was just one of the issues they focused on. There was also voting rights and everything from, Head Start programs, et cetera, that he and a group of African-American parents focused on to ensure that our community had a voice that was heard. And I just remember, again, growing up in that environment, first of all, you saw a blanket of care, and I'm going to say that across the children. A blanket of care was expressed in multiple ways from the time in which you were, sent to the store to go buy something, how people looked out for you on the way there and the way back, and of course reported on you if you did something like, throw rocks or, tease the dog or whatever, and you'd hear about it when you got home, to, when we, went to the state of desegregation and forced busing, when you got home, we got home a little earlier than some of the other parents, and certain parents were taking the kids and ensure that, in my case, the older kids who were in those rooms would, in those houses would educate us and, and tutor us, and the parent would make sure that we had some nutritious snack or whatever it was until our parents got home from work. So, I grew up very much in that form of a community. And my mother, I tell that famous story, she grew up in Washington, D.C., which is where you are, I know.
Yeah.
Multiple generations there, moved out to Colorado to get her master's, ultimately her doctorate degree in teaching and education. And she wrote a check, $25 a month to the United Negro College Fund ever since all I can remember, so 50 plus years or whatever it was. And I just remember, and you'll I'm sure get this, when they had these new Converse All-Stars with $12.50 a pair, and man, I just wanted a pair of those. And I was like, Mom, why are you writing that check? Because I could buy 2 pair with that. And she said, yeah, that's why you're going to go out and cut lawns and sell golf balls and shovel snow so you can buy your own pair. She said, this is so that we can continue to educate our community. And those are things that stick with you. It's it's part of the fabric of how you grow up. Ultimately starts to hopefully express itself in who you are and what you feel your responsibilities are as a human being and as an African American in particular in the communities in which you're in today. So that's kind of the beloved, just some texture of the beloved community I had a chance to grow up in.
Well, I like the term beloved community, and and thank you for this indulging me, because it's so easy for people to get lost with what you're doing now and what your brand is without really taking into consideration the origin of it, because we're young once, you know, and
Right.
get a sense of the essence of that.
And some of us will stay young forever, right, Mike?
Oh, of course we will. Of course we will.